Hi guys, Will Terry here, and this video is going to be called How to Get an Illustration Teaching Job. And I thought I would tackle this subject. I'm actually out in my car right now. I just kind of pulled over into an area that was kind of quiet. I kind of felt like a lot of my videos are looking the same, and also I'm tired of being in my studio and seeing the same old stuff day after day, so I've been trying to get out a little bit more, and just finished riding the bike. So I thought I'd make this video because I got a really great question before I get into that, I always like to just remind people that I have links in the description down below to my Twitter, to Facebook, to Instagram, and to our SVS site. So you can check those out if you want to learn more about me and what I'm up to. But I got this letter, and it was a really good one. And from time to time I save these out into a file so that I can get video topics to talk about. And in this one, Mary says, you mentioned in one of your YouTube videos that you teach at a university to supplement your income. I was wondering if you talked about how to get a job like that, and if so, could you link me to it? Thanks so much for everything. So I haven't talked about this. I don't think I've ever talked about this. Now, I did talk about, I do have a video called Art Teachers, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I'm going to link that below because I did talk a lot about problems in education that I see, and so check that one out if you want to. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of tackle this subject and see where it kind of leads us. So here we go. Now, most people know that if you want to teach at a university, you've got to get a degree. The thing is, and I might also add, as ironic as I make this video, I just kind of quit for a while at the university that I teach at UVU here in Utah. And the reason for that is I'm just too busy. And it's a good reason to quit. And I'm still in really good with the people that hired me there, and you know, it's kind of an open invitation that if they have the space in the future, that they can let me back in. When I teach adjunct, and so when you teach adjunct, that basically is a fancy word for meaning part-time, and it's also a fancy word for meaning that you have no contract, and so they don't have any loyalty to you, and they can let you go at any reason for any time. And that's why I say, if I wanted to teach there, the danger of quitting, which I did, is that they might not have space for me. If I want to just turn it on again, they could have somebody else in that slot teaching the class that I was teaching, or they could have hired a full-time person or something and just not have room. They could stop having the class that I was teaching. I was teaching a class for a while, for like 3 or 4 years. I was teaching 2 classes. I was teaching a children's book, picture book class, and I was also teaching imagination and visual literacy, which is basically a class. It's kind of a design creativity class, and which I thought was actually one of the most important classes. I feel really bad because I know that there's students that, you know, in the catalog it's going to always say staff, but they kind of ask around and they kind of know who's going to be teaching. And I know that there's students that they're thinking that I'm going to be showing up in a few weeks when class starts in August, and I'm not going to be there. And I really feel bad for that. A few of them called me and before and were trying to make sure they got in the class. They were like, "You're going to be there, right?" And I'm not going to. So just have too many things with our own online school, with freelance, and also with the shows that we're doing. So it's a good place to be in. Lots of opportunity. But I love doing it. I love going down there. I see myself teaching there again. And I just don't know when that'll be, if ever, or it could be very soon. So I just don't know. But there's a very big difference between teaching part-time and full-time, obviously, right? To teach full-time, you generally need a master's degree. To teach adjunct, they want you to have a bachelor's degree. They usually don't require a master's. They love it if you do. But I mean, like, how many people are going to spend the money to get a master's degree and then teach adjunct? I mean, the only reason that you would do it is because you're hoping that it would lead to a full-time position. So you might take an adjunct position even though you got your master's, but you're basically waiting for the job, the job that you really want, and they know that. So they're very different. I'm not going to talk about getting a full-time job because everybody pretty much knows about that. What this is going to focus on is actually getting a position as an adjunct. Okay. Before I actually answer the question, I thought I would talk a little bit about motivations and things like that, because I think that teaching art, especially illustration, where students are really hoping and planning on making art their career, is a lot different. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm just biased, but I think it is different. Like when you teach math or the sciences or English or something, you're like grammar. You're teaching rules. And those rules don't change typically. And if they do change, then everybody gets the updated change, and then that's the new rule we're going to go by if it's like science or something like that. But basically, you're helping the student learn the same material that they can learn in another class from a totally different teacher. They're going to learn the exact same thing, and they're going to learn that in every university around the world. When you're dealing with art, and this is, of course, where my bias comes in, every teacher is going to offer something a little bit different. So I'm not going to teach art the same way, the next gal is going to teach art, and I'm going to teach it a different way than you're going to teach art. But I feel like the responsibility comes in as far as you need to be on top of your game. You need to really be able to do and really be able to be really good at what you do in order to teach it. So I want to kind of talk about that a little bit. I basically think that you have to ask yourself, if you want to teach, what is your motivation? I think that should be the first thing. And basically there's 4 reasons that I can think of. There's probably more, but there's basically 4 reasons of why I think a person is going to want to teach. The first one's money. I mean, no one's going to go to the university and teach unless they're making money, right? So if you're not getting paid for it, you're probably not going to find somebody that's going to want to do it. And so for Mary asking me this question, I'm assuming that you want money, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. We have to have money to live, right? Another reason would be that you just love teaching and you love helping other artists with their problems, because that's really what you're doing. You're going in there, and artists are going to have problems understanding concepts, seeing things the way you see things, trying to communicate in a visual manner, and you're in there to say, okay, I know you want to communicate this, but what your image is actually communicating is that. Is that what you intended? If not, here are some suggestions of what I think you could do to get your point across. So you have to basically fall in love with and be in love with the idea of helping someone else with their problems. The third reason would be that you yourself love making art so much that that's the career that you want to do. Like all you want to do is make art. And teaching will give you a little extra money. The adjunct teaching will give you a little bit of a bump so that you get to continue living your dream of making art. Okay? So that's for me, that's the third one. So basically you subsidize your income with teaching. And the fourth reason is that you want to constantly improve as an artist. And so because of that, you realize that by teaching concepts in art, you will have to learn those concepts really well. And by doing that, you are going to get better and better at your own art. Now that last reason, I'll bet most people that go into teaching don't even think of that, even though it's true. And that basically you yourself, there's no if you're really committed to your teaching, there's no possible way that you're not going to improve, because as you break down concepts, as you try to explain them to others, you will make epiphanies, and you will connections, and things will be made more clear to you as you verbalize things. It's an interesting phenomenon, but it happens. Okay. So, and there could be, those are 4 reasons that I came up with, but I definitely understand that you could be motivated more heavily in one area than another. You could also be strictly motivated. I mean, there's definitely people that are teaching just for the money. And, I feel like that's totally wrong. I think if you're teaching for the money, you're totally in the wrong career. So I feel like your number one motivation personally should be that you want to help other people. Now, we all know teachers, and I go into this in the other video, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But we know we've all had good teachers and we've all had bad teachers, and we know that there are plenty of teachers out there they're probably just there for the money, because they're certainly not there to help, and they don't even care about doing their own work, so they're not producing. It's like, why are you even here? And they're certainly not interested in getting better at their art. So, I mean, the only reason they're there is to collect a paycheck, and that's a shame when that happens. But it does happen. So I would say my number one thing is, if that's you, I'm not suggesting that that's you, Mary, or anybody else that's watching this, but dig within yourself. I mean, if that's the thing, if you're just like looking at teaching as a means to an end to make money, you're really going to go in there and wreck lives. I mean, there's no question about it. You are going to be part of the problem, and you should not do that. I mean, I feel really strongly about that, that you have to be committed. So I don't think that you should teach unless you have the abundance mentality. And by that I mean the idea that if I go out into the world and every year I teach 20 students a semester, so I teach 40 students a year, and of those 40 students, maybe 3 to 5 in each class take it really seriously. So 6 to 10 people a year end up really trying to add art to the world. My abundance mentality tells me that in no way will those artists go out there and steal or take food off of my plate because they're creating art. I believe that the world is expanding, that our desires for art are expanding. There are people coming in, there are people coming out, there are people shifting. I believe that the more art that we create together as a whole, we edify and we lift each other up, and we expose the world. Those people, I mean, everybody appreciates art, whether they will admit it or not. And I've talked about this on other videos. There's not a single thing that you want, that anybody wants to spend their money on, their recreational money on, that doesn't have an art component to it. Not a single thing. If you want to go out to eat, you've got the culinary arts. That is art. If you want clothing, that was all designed. If you want a new car, anything that you could possibly want was touched by the hand of an artist. So I just feel like I don't feel like creating more artists is going to hurt anybody. I think that's it's funny because there's a few people that I've known who wouldn't share their and these are only the people that I know personally, who have told me no, they don't want to share their methods of creating art because they'll get stolen, copied, and they won't be able to make a living anymore because other people will take their precious secrets and use them against them. And those are the only those artists are the ones that aren't still creating today. It's funny. The artists that share the most, I find, are the ones that have the most thriving careers. So, and that's one of the reasons why I feel the way I do on that. So, I think teachers should have the abundance mentality. I also feel like if you're going to teach, you should be willing to try to give more than you're going to get from it. In other words, that the teaching of other students should come first. Now, let me qualify that. When you teach adjunct, you are not going to be paid anywhere near what you're paid when you're full-time. So, for instance, a lot of full-time faculty, and again, schools are going to vary from state to state, from country to country, from private school to more state school. But you're going to have full-time professors that are going to earn more than others, right? And but in general, I would say that full-time faculty might be making anywhere from 70 to 80,000 a year, clear up to 120, $150,000 a year as an art educator. They really can make that much money. But the range is there. But when you teach adjunct for state schools, you might be making somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 per class, and that's generally where it resides. I don't know people that are making much more than that, and I've taught anywhere from a 2-credit class for about $2,000, which is just, it's terrible money. I mean, it's just not good money for but you're only there for a couple times a week, and then clear up to like 3,500, 4,000, somewhere in there for a 3-credit class. So it's not a lot of money in the first place, but I still feel that if you're in the mindset of I'm going to figure out what I'm actually making per hour at this stipend that they're paying you, and the students aren't going to get any more of my time than when I'm there, and as soon as class is over, I'm going to leave because that's what I'm contracted to do. I'm not going to stay after class and help anybody. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on lesson plan. I kind of feel like you're not you're not in it to win it. You're not what the students need. And I feel like if you're there and if you're giving to the students, and you really put your heart into it, even if you do have to spend more time than you should sometimes, it will come back to you in other ways. And that, it would take me too long to explain all of that, to go into why I think that's true. But I mean, it's like karma, it really does come back to you in a lot of different ways. And I have a lot of examples of how that's happened for me personally. But I just feel like for me personally, when I am making lessons, a lot of times I'll have my lesson plans from the previous year, and I could just go through those. But within a year, I found things that work better. So I will go back into my lesson plans before class, and before the semester starts, and start working on them. And I'm not getting paid for that time, and I don't have to do that. I could go in and wing it. But I really want to show up to class and have a lesson that really gets students thinking, that really changes their life to where they're going, oh my gosh, this really, really helped. And that really will come back to you. But just going in and just saying, this is this is what I've done before, and this is just here, just try this, and not really caring. I just don't think that that's the right mentality to have. And I also think that you should have another quality, which is you should be willing to innovate, and that means analyzing how the students responded to an exercise that you did, a lecture that you gave, an assignment that you gave, and trying to figure out like why they failed at it. What did they not do well that you thought you explained well, and where did they fall short, and how can you do it better the next time? And maybe that's throwing out that assignment, but you have to be willing to innovate and come up with ideas on how to teach them better. Again, this is not the reason that art is different from science is it's subjective. And even though there are principles of design, there are things that are tried and true with old masters techniques. Once you get beyond that, it comes down to teaching styles, and it comes down to exercises, and it comes down to your personal experience. I also feel like you should have worked professionally, and this is a hard one for a lot of people, because a lot of people want to go right into teaching. I mean, to me, the best teachers are those who can do it. Now, I will make this exception in that I do think and do feel that there are teachers who have the quality of they love art, they love teaching, and they love helping other people, but maybe they're not that amazing at it themselves, but they're totally committed to their class. And I have seen really effective teachers, and what they do is they bring in tons of examples from other artists who are really successful, and they are constantly showing and sharing with their students the methods that these master illustrators and artists use. That can be effective, but again, they have to make up for it with their enthusiasm and with their willingness to create lesson plans that really go above and beyond. In general, I think the ideal teacher is going to be somebody who is really good at their craft and who has been vetted by the market, right? So in other words, like, you could self-publish your own book. You could make your own book. But that's not been vetted by anybody. But if you make your own book and then you're very successful in selling it to thousands and thousands of people, then okay, then maybe that is, I mean, that's what I'm talking about by being vetted by the market. Either you're hired by someone else to do a job, you're hired by someone to do freelance, or you've hired yourself and created a product that has been vetted by the market. Short of that, I think that there are a lot of teachers out there that are kind of delusional about their own abilities. And I've seen a lot of teachers out there who really haven't created anything. They've been teaching for a decade and their portfolio is the same as when they started. This is not a person who should be teaching. Again, I don't really want to go into that negative side. I did that on the good and the bad and the ugly. Let's see. And then another one is, I think that you ought to be willing to teach, and I got a helicopter going up here. But I think you ought to be willing to teach more than you were taught. In other words, you were taught a whole bunch of things, and you can remember those things that you were taught, and you're definitely going to regurgitate some of those things, right? And we all do, and that's good. We pass on what was passed to us. But you also have to be willing to teach things that you've discovered as an artist in order to be an effective teacher. You can't do that unless you've been vetted by the market, unless you've gone out there and been hired and created things professionally and worked for a decent amount of time to where, years hopefully, to where you have made your own discoveries, where you postulated your own theories. And by doing that, now you've become a person who can really give a student something that they're not going to be able to get somewhere else. So teaching is another art form. And in order to be a good artist as a teacher, you've got to have that amount. And I'll give you an example. There's a guy that I worked with who he worked full-time. He got hired on full-time. He got hired on full-time without a master's degree, which is almost unheard of at the university setting. The reason that he did was simply because when he went in they wanted him to teach. His department wanted him to teach. And when they went in to meet with the chairman and the higher-ups in the art department, they said, well, this person only has a bachelor's degree. And they said, yeah, that's true. But if he went and got a master's degree, he would end up having to use his own books as the textbook in the master's program, because that's what they use in digital painting. So this is Don Sigmiller, and he actually wrote all the Corel books. Like if you're into Corel Painter, he wrote, I think he's written like 10 books, and in master's programs they would have you use his books. So he got the teaching job without having to have the degree, the master's degree. So that's what I'm talking about, is knowing your craft so well that you will give to your students much more than you're taking out in the form of their tuition, right? I mean, let's be honest. That's where the money's coming from, is their tuition, right? So to get to answering the actual question, how do you get hired? So I make you guys listen, as you're drawing, I make you guys listen to all the fluff before I actually answer the question, else everybody would just click out. I'm sneaky that way. So basically, as I see it, if you went to apply at a university and you didn't know anybody, and you just said, hey, I'd like to teach adjunct in the art department, these are my credentials, this is my portfolio, you'd fill out an application with somebody in HR or somewhere on campus, some office that nobody even knows about, you'd probably never get hired, and you probably would never get a call, and nothing would probably ever happen. The message would probably never get to the right person. And in fact, even if it did hit their desk, the artwork probably wouldn't hit their desk. So let's say you're an amazing artist, and the art department would love to hire you. If you go through the proper channels, they probably will never see your art, And we're so visual as artists that if we hear, oh, this person applied to teach adjunct and they're really, really good, you know what I'd be thinking? This is what everybody does. Like if you hear that somebody is an amazing artist that lives down the street from you or something, do you think they're world class? No, we always have the tendency to think, for some reason we always think worse of people. We think that it will be let down. We've been let down so many times, we're conditioned to protect ourselves from thinking, well, I mean the opposite of like the art teacher hearing that there's somebody's applied at the university and going, well, this person is probably one of the best in the world. Well, then why would they think that? There's no reason to think that. So they're going to ignore it. You're not going to get called. You really have to know somebody. So the thing, if you really wanted to get hired as an adjunct at your university, the thing to probably do would probably be to get involved in some activities that they have with their art department. You know, start going down there and finding out what activities they have coming up. See if it's possible for you to attend, you know, as an artist, and try to meet the faculty. That would be the thing that I would do first. And over time, then, you know, you can get contact information, and then you can send them a direct email with your images. For me, if I were hiring at a university, that would be my number one thing, is I want to see the portfolio, period. I don't want anybody teaching my students that doesn't have a really good portfolio, so that's the thing I'm going to look for. If the portfolio really impresses me, now I'm going to be interested. And if I need help, which they often do, because adjuncts are paid poorly enough to where the job isn't that valuable, and I think that's on purpose, to where you can walk away from it and it's not the end of the world. It's not devastating. You're not relying on it. It's great extra income, but it's not. And let me be clear, like, you know, if you with the amount of money that you're making, you really can make about $40 or $50 an hour at some, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe closer to $100 an hour, depending if you figure out the hours that you're in class. That doesn't usually figure out your lesson plan times, but the hours that you're actually there. So it's not horrible money. It's not McDonald's money. It's just, for professionals, it's not great money. But that would be the big thing that I would do, is really try to get to know the faculty in some way, shape, or form. Find out somebody who knows them, and then kind of basically submit your portfolio and see if they have any needs. Check up from time to time, and it's one of those situations of who you know. The way I was hired at my university is I was asked to give a lecture at Southern Utah University about 15 years ago, by a guy named Perry Stewart, who is at the time was teaching down there. He's also he's an amazing illustrator and artist, but he also was doing freelance editorial work at the time. And so he invited me to come down and give a lecture at their university. And then he ended up moving up to Utah Valley University, and then I was living in California at the time. When I moved back, they needed somebody. He found out that I had moved back into town, and so he called me up. So again, it's who you know. And I would say probably just about everybody who I know who's been hired as an adjunct, the teachers know them first. I've put forth names before, and when the teachers don't know them, the hiring teachers, they're kind of like, I don't know, who's this guy, you know? They really, they're putting their reputation on the line when they hire you, because they don't want you to not show up for class. They don't know who you are. They don't know if you're reliable. They don't know if you're good with students. They don't know if you're weird. They don't know if you're going to make a problem for the university. In fact, UVU, where I teach, or where I taught, has a policy that they instituted, which was they purge the system of adjuncts every semester now, just so they can get rid of the weird people that find their way in there, that weasel their way into teaching, so that they don't feel like they own the job from semester to semester. They just are like, you have to reapply. Everybody, all the best teachers that are adjuncts, everybody has to reapply every semester. And that way, basically, everybody's fired at the end of the semester, so that there is no real firing, there's no drama, there's no nothing like that, which it's a pain for people who, as I taught there for 7 years in a row, and so this is like the first semester that I'll be taking off in 7 years, and it's a pain for people who are going to teach semester after semester, but I understand why they do it, and I support it, even though it's a pain for me, because people are weird. They're freaking weird people out there. You're not one of them, but trust me, there are weird people out there, and weird people make it harder for everybody else, and so they've gone to those lengths. So anyway, I hope this has helped. I hope this gives you a little bit of insight into teaching adjunct. Anyway, thanks for watching, and do not subscribe unless you want to see more videos like this.